In the heart of the Lumina Silva, a forest of light that shimmered like emeralds under the sun, lived a Grippli named Kael. Now, Grippilis are small frog-like creatures, usually about 2 feet tall, with skin that can be green, brown, orange, or even blue. They climb trees well and typically live in warm forests or marshes. Most Grippilis are hunters, nomads, or scouts, but some become animal whisperers or herbalists. They're deeply connected to nature, which makes them excellent druids and rangers. They can live up to 60 years if they don't meet a violent end, which is possible considering they live in dangerous environments. They usually eat giant insects and a variety of fruits. Some Grippilis can even have unique physical traits like toxic skin or long tongues. But Kael was unlike any other Grippli, for he was born with a unique gift, the ability to communicate with the forest. His skin was a vibrant green, a perfect match for the lush foliage of Lumina Silva. His large, bulbous eyes were a deep gold, like the oldest coins in a treasure chest, reflecting wisdom beyond his years. Kael was known for his calm demeanor and thoughtful nature. He was a sage among his people, a keeper of ancient law, and a mediator in tribal disputes. His gift allowed him to listen to the whispers of the trees, to understand the songs of the streams, and to interpret the dance of the fireflies. He was, in essence, the soul of Lumina Silva, a living conduit between the natural world and the Grippli tribes that called the forest their home. Kael often sat in deep meditation in a secluded grove, where the moonlight danced on the leaves like silver fireflies. Here, he would converse with the ancient spirits of the forest, seeking the guidance and offering his insights in return. It was a sacred communion, a meeting of minds transcending language and species. For Kael, this was more than a gift, it was a responsibility, a calling he embraced with humility and devotion. Kael and Bog journeyed through the mystical pathways of Lumina Silva, a forest that seemed to breathe life into every step they took. The trees here were ancient, their gnarled roots twisting like serpents through the fertile earth and their leaves shimmering with an ethereal glow. The air was thick with the scent of damp moss and wildflowers, punctuated by the distant calls of unseen creatures. His companion on this journey was a Boggard named Bog. Boggards are amphibious beings akin to Grippilis but far more imposing. Standing nearly 5 feet tall, Bog was a mountain of muscle, his skin a deep, mottled green that blended seamlessly with the dense foliage around him. His eyes were like dark pools of water, reflecting the world but revealing little. Kael, the forest whispers of a gathering storm, Bog rumbled, his voice as deep as a rolling thunderclap. We must tread carefully. Kael looked at his friend, his golden eyes meeting Bog's dark gaze. I hear it too, old friend. The forest is uneasy, but it also speaks of our unity, of the strength that comes from our friendship. Bog chuckled, a sound like boulders grinding together. Ah, you always had a way with words. If I could speak to the trees and wind like you, I'd tell them to calm their spirits. We've faced worse than a mere storm. Kael smiled, his eyes twinkling like the first stars of the evening. Indeed, we have. But each challenge is a lesson, each obstacle a stepping stone on understanding. As they moved deeper into the forest, the canopy above seemed to close in, as if the trees were leaning in to listen to their conversation. The light that filtered through the leaves cast dappled shadows on the ground, painting the forest floor in a mosaic of light and dark. Bog suddenly stopped, his eyes narrowing. Do you feel that, Kael? The ground beneath us, it trembles. Kael closed his eyes for a moment, reaching out with his senses. Yes, the earth itself is restless. Something stirs in the depths, something ancient and powerful. Bog gripped the hilt of his greatsword, its blade inscribed with runes of power. Then let it come. We stand ready, as brothers in arms. Kael nodded, his hand resting on the gnarled staff he carried. As the forest is my witness, we shall face whatever comes, side by side. And so, they ventured forth, 2 souls bound by friendship and a shared destiny, their hearts beating as one with the living pulse of Lumina Silva. As Kael and Bog journeyed through Lumina Silva, they were enveloped in a world unlike any other. The forest was a living tapestry of colors, a riotous blend of hues that defied description. Flowers of every conceivable shade bloomed amidst the emerald green foliage, as if the forest floor were a painter's palette splashed with the colors of the rainbow. By the spirits, Kael, have you ever seen a place so filled with life? Bog exclaimed, his eyes widening at seeing a flower that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Kael smiled, his golden eyes twinkling. Only in my dreams, Bog. Lumina Silva is a rare gem, a sanctuary where the veil between the natural and the mystical is thin. The air was thick with the sweet scent of nectar, so intoxicating that it seemed like the atmosphere was imbued with magic. The musical calls of exotic birds filled the air, their songs woven together in a complex tapestry of sound that was both haunting and uplifting. Listen, Kael said softly, the birds are singing the song of the ancients, a melody passed down through generations. It's said to be a hymn of gratitude to the forest. Bog closed his eyes momentarily, letting the music wash over him. It's beautiful. It makes the worries of the world seem trivial. As they walked, their path was illuminated by clusters of bioluminescent fungi that dotted the forest floor, casting an ethereal glow that seemed to pulse in time with their footsteps. The light from the fungi reflected off the tiny scales on Kael's skin, making him appear as if he were part of the forest itself. These are moonpetal fungi, Kael explained. They bloom only once every 100 years and are said to mark the places where the forest's magic is strongest. Bog looked down at the glowing fungi and then back at Kael. Then we are truly blessed to witness such a marvel. Yes, we are, Kael agreed, his voice tinged with reverence. But we must also remember that with such beauty comes responsibility. We are guests in this magnificent realm and must tread lightly. Bog nodded, his expression serious. Agreed. Lumina Silva has welcomed us into its heart, and we shall honor that gift by being its stewards, not its conquerors. Bog nodded, his expression serious. Agreed. Lumina Silva has welcomed us into its heart, and we shall honor that gift by being its stewards, not its conquerors. As they sat by a crystal-clear stream, its waters dancing with iridescent fish that seemed to shimmer in and out of existence, Bog broke the silence. Kael, do you ever wonder what it's like outside Lumina Silva? Kael looked at him thoughtfully, his golden eyes meeting Bog's gaze as if peering into his soul. I do, he admitted, his voice tinged with a wistful longing. I've heard tales of lands where the sun blazes like a furnace and others where snow blankets the earth in a shroud of white. Places where the trees do not speak, and the wind carries no whispers. Bog nodded, his eyes narrowing as if trying to envision such alien landscapes. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? A world so silent, so lifeless. Yes, it is, Kael sighed. But every land has its magic, its spirit. Just as Lumina Silva has nurtured us, so too do those lands sustain those who call them home. You're right, of course, Bog said, his eyes filled with a newfound respect. But it's hard to think of leaving, even for a moment, when there's so much here that needs us. Kael's eyes met Bog's once more, their depths filled with a pearl of ancient wisdom. And that, my friend, is why we stay. This is our home, Bog. And right now, it needs us more than ever. Bog looked at the stream as a school of those iridescent fish leaped in a sudden, joyous arc, their bodies catching the light in a burst of colors. Then here we shall remain, as its guardians, its stewards. For in Lumina Silva, every leaf, every petal, every drop of water is a part of us, and we are a part of it. Kael smiled, his heart swelling with a sense of purpose, of belonging. Indeed, we are. And so long as we draw breath, Lumina Silva shall never stand alone. Kael smiled, his heart swelling with a sense of purpose, of belonging. Indeed, we are. And so long as we draw breath, Lumina Silva shall never stand alone. But as the words left his lips, Kael felt a sudden chill that seemed to seep into his very bones. The vibrant colors of Lumina Silva dulled as if drained of life, and an eerie silence fell over the forest, muting even the ever-present song of the birds and the whisper of the wind. Sensing the growing darkness, Kael turned his eyes toward the source of this malevolent energy. Emerging from the shadows was a figure that made his skin crawl, a hag, as repulsive and terrifying as the legends described. Her skin was a patchwork of scars, marred by warts and moles. Her long, skinny fingers ended in talon-like nails, hard as steel and just as deadly. Her mouth was a twisted cavern filled with sharp, blackened teeth, and her breath seemed to poison the air. She wore simple, ragged, and dirty clothing, but what caught Kael's eye were the gruesome decorations that adorned her bones, feathers, and other dark talismans. With a maniacal laugh that echoed through the forest like a death knell, she raised her arms. The sky darkened further as if the sun was afraid to shine, and the trees seemed to recoil in fear. "Behold my power, Grippli!" she cackled, her voice dripping with malice. "Soon, all of Lumina Silva will be plunged into eternal darkness." As quickly as she appeared, the hag vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of withered plants, their life force sucked away as if by some unholy magic. The air was thick with a sense of impending doom, and Kael knew he had to act. He looked at Bog, his eyes filled with a grim determination. "We cannot let her prevail. Lumina Silva's very soul is at stake." Bog gripped his weapon, his knuckles white with tension. "Then we fight. We fight for every leaf, every stream, every creature that calls this forest home." Nodding, Kael knew where they must go. "We need wisdom, old wisdom. We must seek the counsel of Sepo-Fuerzo, the oracle of the swamps." Bog's eyes widened. "I've heard tales but never thought I'd have reason to seek him out." "Desperate times call for desperate measures," Kael said solemnly. "Sepo-Fuerzo, the extraordinary amphibian sage, is our only hope in understanding how to confront this dark force and restore light to Lumina Silva." "Desperate times call for desperate measures," Kael said solemnly. "Sepo-Fuerzo, the extraordinary amphibian sage, is our only hope in understanding how to confront this dark force and restore light to Lumina Silva." With urgency, Kael and Bog made their way to the hidden grove where Sepo-Fuerzo was known to reside. The grove was a place of ancient magic, where the air seemed thick with the wisdom of ages past. As they entered, they found the sage sitting on a lily pad, his eyes closed in deep meditation. "Ah, Kael and Bog, I've been expecting you," Sepo-Fuerzo said, opening his eyes, which seemed to hold the mysteries of the universe. "Darkness has fallen upon Lumina Silva, and you seek a way to banish it." "Yes, wise one," Kael replied. "We must stop the hag before she plunges our home into eternal night." Sepo-Fuerzo nodded gravely. "To confront such malice, you will need something extraordinarily potent. You must seek the oil of chaos, which seeps from the base of the crystal of eons. It is hidden deep within the sunken temple of Loria, a place few have ever returned from." Bog looked puzzled. "And how do we find this temple?" Sepo-Fuerzo turned his gaze to Kael. "To find the entrance to the temple, you must first find your true self. You have a unique gift, Kael, that allows you to communicate with the forest. Now, you must delve into the depths of your being to discover strengths and virtues you never knew you possessed." Taking the sage's words to heart, Kael closed his eyes and focused inward. As he did, he felt as if he was sinking into the essence of Lumina Silva, its life force resonating with his own. He saw himself not just as a Grippli but as a guardian, a steward of the forest's magic. He felt a surge of courage, of resolve, filling him with a newfound strength. Opening his eyes, Kael looked at Bog and Sepo-Fuerzo. "I understand now. I know what I must do." Sepo-Fuerzo nodded approvingly. "Then go, Kael. Seek the sunken temple of Loria, find the oil of chaos, and confront the darkness that threatens us all. May the spirits of Lumina Silva guide you." With a sense of purpose burning in his heart, Kael turned to Bog. "Are you with me?" Bog grinned, his eyes shining with excitement and determination. "To the ends of the forest and beyond, my friend." Bog grinned, his eyes shining with excitement and determination. "To the ends of the forest and beyond, my friend," Bog had said, and so they ventured, their hearts ablaze with purpose. As Kael and Bog journeyed deeper into Lumina Silva, the forest seemed to come alive, guiding them on their path. Whispers in the wind grew louder, more distinct, as if the very trees were speaking to them in an ancient tongue only Kael could understand. The foliage seemed to part before them, revealing hidden trails that wound through the forest-like veins of the earth. Even the bioluminescent fungi that dotted the forest floor seemed to light their way, casting an ethereal glow that danced in the darkness. Finally, they arrived at the destination after what felt like an eternity and a mere moment. Before them lay the entrance to the sunken Temple of Loria, a place spoken of in hushed tones and veiled in mystery. Hidden beneath a waterfall that cascaded from an unseen height, the water shimmered with an ethereal light as if touched by the gods themselves. It was as though the very fabric of reality was thinner here, the boundary between the mortal realm and the world of spirits blurred. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Kael stepped through the waterfall, feeling the water part around him as if granting passage. Bog followed, his eyes wide with awe and wonder. The moment they crossed the threshold, the atmosphere changed so palpably it was almost like stepping into another world. The air inside was thick and heavy with the weight of ancient magic and untold secrets. It was as if the walls were imbued with the wisdom and sorrows of a bygone era, whispering tales of heroism and tragedy unfolding within these hallowed halls. The stone underfoot was worn smooth by time, and intricate carvings adorned the walls, depicting scenes of celestial beings locked in eternal combat with monstrous creatures from the abyss. "By the spirits," Bog breathed, his voice tinged with reverence and awe. "I've never felt anything like this. It's as if the temple itself is alive." Kael nodded, his golden eyes taking in the arcane symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. "It is more than just stone and mortar, Bog. This place is a conduit for energies most mortals can scarcely comprehend. We must tread carefully." And sir, with a sense of awe and the gravest of responsibilities settling upon him, Kael and Bog ventured further into the temple, guided by the whispers of the forest and the ancient magic that pulsed through the air they breathed. "Careful, Bog," Kael whispered as they entered the first of the temple's flooded chambers. The water was up to their knees, and it was clear that navigating this labyrinthine maze would be no simple task. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from phosphorescent algae that clung to the walls, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance and sway. "No sooner said than done," Bog replied, gripping his trident tightly as they waded forward. The tension was palpable, like the charged air before a storm. Suddenly, a giant serpent lunged at him from a shadowy corner, its scales shimmering like gemstones in the dim light. With a swift motion, Kael drew his enchanted dagger and struck, guided by the wisdom of Seppo Fuerzo and the courage he had found within himself. The serpent let out a hiss of agony and retreated into the depths. "By the spirits, that was close," Bog said, his eyes wide with adrenaline. "And it won't be the last," Kael warned. "Stay vigilant." As they delved deeper into the temple, the challenges grew more complex. They entered a chamber where the water receded, giving way to a series of stepping stones that floated on the surface. Intricate carvings adorned the walls, depicting celestial constellations and arcane symbols. At the room's far end was a door sealed by some mysterious force. "Look," Bog pointed to a series of levers on the wall. "Do you think they're connected to the door?" "Most likely," Kael nodded. "But pulling them in the wrong sequence could trigger a trap. We must be cautious." After studying the symbols and constellations, Kael took a deep breath. "The answer lies in the stars," he said, pulling the levers in a sequence that mirrored the celestial patterns on the walls. With a rumble, the door creaked open, revealing another chamber beyond. But before they could proceed, the stepping stones began to vanish and reappear in a complex, ever-changing pattern. "By the gods, what sorcery is this?" Bog exclaimed. "It's a test of agility and wit," Kael surmised. "We must time our steps perfectly to cross." Taking a deep breath, Kael leaped onto the first stone just as it appeared, then onto the next, his eyes keenly focused on the pattern. Bog followed, his agility surprising for one of his size. With a final leap, they landed safely on the other side, hearts pounding but spirits high. "We did it," Bog grinned, clapping Kael on the back. "Yes, but this is just the beginning," Kael said, his eyes narrowing as they ventured deeper into the temple's enigmatic depths. With each step they took toward the heart of the temple, Kael and Bog felt the air grow thicker with ancient magic, as if they were walking through a tapestry woven from the threads of time itself. Finally, they entered a chamber so breathtaking it defied description. The walls were adorned with intricate mosaics of iridescent shells and precious stones, depicting scenes of celestial harmony and elemental chaos. But what caught their eyes was the pool at the center of the room, glowing with an otherworldly light that seemed to defy the laws of nature. As they approached, a figure materialized before them, rising from the pool like a phantom. It was a shaman, or at least what once was a shaman. Her form was translucent, like a figure made of water, and her eyes glowed with an eerie, unsettling light. When she spoke, her voice was like the babbling of a brook, both soothing and disquieting. "You dare to tread in this sacred place?" she hissed, her form rippling like disturbed water. "What brings you to the heart of Loria?" "We seek the oil of chaos to banish a great darkness that threatens Lumina Silva," Kael spoke, his voice steady despite the tension that filled the air like a thick fog. The water spirit swelled in a vortex of emotion, her form undulating as if wrestling with some inner turmoil. "Many have come seeking power, but few have been worthy. Prove that your intentions are pure, and you may claim the oil of chaos." Kael looked at Bog, who nodded as if to say, "This is your moment." Taking a deep breath, Kael began to sing. It was an ancient Grippli hymn, a song passed down through generations, a melody of unity and harmony with nature. As the notes filled the chamber, they seemed to resonate with the very stones, as if the temple was joining the hymn. As he sang, Kael felt the spirit's anger begin to wane, replaced by a sense of peace that spread like ripples on a pond. The water spirit's form stabilized, her swirling vortex of emotion settling into a calm, serene pool. "Your song has touched me, Grippli," she said, her voice as gentle as a summer breeze. "Your intentions are pure, your heart in harmony with the natural world. You may claim the oil of chaos." With a sense of awe and reverence, Kael approached the pool. As he filled a vial with the glowing liquid, he felt its power surge as if he were drawing from the very essence of the universe itself. "Use it wisely," the water spirit intoned, her form beginning to dissolve, merging back into the pool from whence she came. "May your path be guided by the light of Lumina Silva." Kael turned to Bog, his eyes meeting the Boggard's own. No words were needed, their expressions spoke volumes. With the oil of chaos in hand, they now had the means to confront the darkness to bring light back to their beloved forest. The water spirit's voice, now as gentle as a stream, reverberated through the chamber, filling the air with an almost palpable sense of peace. "You may claim the oil of chaos, guardians of Lumina Silva. Use it wisely, and may your forest be forever bathed in light." Kael and Bog exchanged a glance, their eyes meeting in profound understanding. This was the culmination of their quest, the point at which their hands would shape destiny. With a sense of awe that bordered on reverence, they approached the pool, its surface shimmering like a sea of liquid diamonds. Kael held out a vial, intricately crafted from the shell of a rare Lumina Silva mollusk, its iridescent sheen reflecting the otherworldly light of the pool. As he dipped it into the water, the liquid seemed to recognize its purpose, flowing into the vial as if guided by an unseen hand. The moment the vial was filled, it glowed with an inner light pulsating with untold power. Bog looked at the vial, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "It's like holding a piece of the universe itself." Kael nodded, sealing the vial with a stopper made from the bark of an ancient Lumina Silva tree. "It's more than just beautiful, Bog. It's hope. It's the promise of a new dawn for our forest." Something extraordinary happened as they stood there, holding the vial between them. The chamber itself seemed to respond to the oil of chaos, its mosaics glowing brighter, its atmosphere tinged with an energy that was both exhilarating and humbling. They felt a sense of hope surge through them, filling their hearts with a warmth that banished all doubt, all fear. "We have what we came for," Kael said, his voice filled with determination. "Now we must return and confront the hag. With this, we can bring light back to Lumina Silva." Bog nodded, his grip tightening on his trident. "And we will, Kael. We will drive out the darkness and restore the balance." For Lumina Silva, all its creatures, and the generations yet unborn. As they left the chamber, the water spirit's form began to dissolve, her essence merging into the pool. But her voice lingered, a final whisper that seemed to echo through the very stones of the temple. Go forth, guardians of Lumina Silva. May your path be lit by the stars, and may your courage be as boundless as the sky. As Kael and Bog stepped into the clearing, the hag cackled, her voice a discordant melody that seemed to scrape against the very fabric of the world. So, the guardians of Lumina Silva come to challenge me, she sneered, her eyes glowing like coals in the dying light. Do you think you can stop me? With a sense of purpose that cut through the tension like a blade, Kael held up the vial of oil of chaos. We don't think, hag. We know. In a swift motion, he uncorked the vial and hurled its contents at the hag. The oil of chaos splashed against her, and she screamed a pure agony echoing through the forest. Her form wavered as if struggling to maintain its shape, but she did not dissolve. Instead, she seemed weakened, her malevolent energy diminished but not extinguished. Curse you, she spat, her voice tinged with a newfound desperation. You think this will stop me? With a wave, she summoned a horde of shadowy creatures, twisted abominations of forest animals, their forms corrupted by dark magic. They lunged at Kael and Bog, snarling and snapping with malevolent glee. Bog roared, swinging his trident in wide arcs, each strike banishing a shadow creature back to the darkness from whence it came. His enchanted dagger glowing with ethereal light, Kael danced through the battle like a leaf on the wind, his strikes precise and deadly. But the hag was not idle. She gathered her dark magic and unleashed a bolt of eldritch energy at Kael. He dodged, but the bolt struck a tree, its bark withering instantly and leaves turning ash. We can't let her continue this destruction, Kael shouted, dodging another bolt. Bog nodded, his eyes meeting Kael's in unspoken understanding. With a battle cry, they charged at the hag, weapons raised, hearts filled with the courage of their convictions. The hag screeched, her form flickering like a candle in the wind, but she was too slow. Bog's trident struck. First, its prongs found their mark, disrupting her dark magic. Kael followed, his dagger glowing brighter as it absorbed the hag's evil energy, weakening her further. With a final, desperate scream, the hag staggered back, her form disintegrating into a cloud of dark mist quickly dispersed by a sudden gust of wind. As she vanished, the forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The colors of the leaves grew brighter, the songs of the birds more melodious, as if Lumina Silva itself were celebrating the banishment of the darkness. We did it, Boggs said, his voice tinged with awe and disbelief. His eyes scanned the clearing, now devoid of the hag's evil presence, as if expecting her to reappear. We did it. Kael sheathed his glowing dagger and looked at his friend, his golden eyes filled with relief and solemnity. We did, Bog, but let's not forget she was a symptom of a greater imbalance. The forest whispered of darker forces at play, forces that even the hag might have been a pawn to. Bog's mottled green skin seemed to pale at the thought. You mean, there could be others? Kael nodded gravely. The oil of chaos gave us the strength to banish her, but it also revealed glimpses of other shadows lurking in the corners of the world. We must remain vigilant. As they returned through the forest, the air seemed to sing with newfound vitality. Lumina Silva was a tapestry of life, every thread from the tiniest insect to the mightiest tree interwoven in a complex pattern of existence. And now, 2 more threads had been strengthened, their colors a bit more vibrant, their connection to the whole more secure. When they finally emerged from the forest's depths, they were greeted by a throng of jubilant faces, Grippli, Boggards, and other denizens of Lumina Silva. Word had spread of their quest, and the community had gathered to welcome them home. But Kael and Bog did not feel like conquering heroes. As they stood before their kin, they felt the weight of their responsibility, the gravity of the task ahead. They were guardians, chosen not by destiny but by their own actions and choices. Sepo Fuetso, the wise amphibian who had guided them, hopped forward, his eyes twinkling like twin stars. You have done well, my young friends. But remember, the true strength of Lumina Silva does not lie in the blade or the bow or even in ancient oils and magics. It lies in the unity of all its inhabitants, the harmony that comes from diversity, in the love that binds us all. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its golden farewell upon the forest they loved, Kael and Bog knew that their journey was far from over. But whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their hearts fortified by the indomitable spirit of Lumina Silva. Story of life once more, its vibrant hues and harmonious melodies a testament to the resilience of nature. But as they walked through the familiar yet ever mysterious trails, the experience left a lasting imprint on their souls. They had glimpsed the fragile balance between light and darkness, felt the intricate weave of magic that bound the natural and the supernatural. The sun dipped below the horizon as they approached the heart of Lumina Silva. The trees seemed to bow in quiet reverence, their leaves whispering tales of the brave guardians who had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. The fireflies danced in joyous arcs, their luminescent ballet a tribute to the bond between Kael and Bog, a bond that had been forged in the crucible of adversity and had shone bright against the shadows that sought to engulf their beloved home. As they reached the village, a crowd of Gripplis, young and old, gathered around, their eyes filled with admiration and relief. They had felt the dark shroud lift, sensed the return of harmony to Lumina Silva. The village elder, a venerable Grippli with eyes that held the wisdom of many sun cycles, stepped forward, his voice quivering with emotion. "You have saved Lumina Silva, and with it, the essence of our existence," he said, his eyes welling with tears of joy. "You have shown us that with courage, unity, and the indomitable spirit of nature, no darkness can prevail." The night fell, but it was a night filled with stars, each twinkling orb a silent guardian watching over the forest. The village was alive with jubilant celebrations, the rhythmic beats of drums resonating with the heartbeat of Lumina Silva. Stories were told, and retold, of the daring quest of Kael and Bog, the names now etched in the annals of Grippli lore, immortalized in the songs of the forest. But amidst the celebration, Kael and Bog sat by the tranquil waters of the lake, their eyes reflecting the star-studded sky. They spoke little, for words were mere vessels, too small to contain the ocean of emotions that surged within them. They had touched the ancient magic that flowed through Lumina Silva, confronted the abyss, and returned with a deeper understanding of their place in the great tapestry of existence. The moon cast a gentle glow on Lumina Silva, its silvery light a soft caress on the leaves that danced to the ancient, eternal rhythm of nature. The forest whispered its ageless tales to those who would listen, its verdant heart beating with the promise of endless cycles of life, death, and rebirth. And as Kael and Bog sat there, in contemplative silence, they knew that they were but humble notes in the grand symphony of Lumina Silva, a melody that would continue to play through the ages, unyielding, eternal, and evergreen.